We're planting trees, and since you loved our last video on mistakes that I don't want to see you make when planting trees, we're coming at you with a part dos. There's a lot we're going to talk about, so let's get going. The first mistake that I do not want to see you make when planting fruit trees, and this is a huge one. If you make this mistake, you might as well just not even plant these trees, because it comes down to what's called chill hours. If you don't know what chill hours are, you got to learn that first before you pick out trees, because all fruit trees, deciduous fruit trees, not tropical, but deciduous fruit trees, meaning they drop their leaves and then regrow in the spring, have what's called chill hours. Now, chill hours is basically it's like a clock that resets. And these trees, apple trees, can have low chill hours, like 400 chill hours, or high chill hours, like 1,000 chill hours. Now, what are chill hours? Chill hours is a temperature window above freezing, but below 40 to 42 degrees. In that window, that is the amount of hours that it takes to essentially reset that clock. So these trees will eventually fruit one year, and then they need to be reset. And that is the amount of hours that they need to reset. You can plant here in Michigan. We get about, in a given season, we get about 1,200 chill hours where we're at. So we have plenty. If you have an 800 chill hour apple, 1,000 chill hour apple, they don't usually get much further than that. That's pretty extreme. You can plant a chill hour apple of 400 all the way up to 1,000 and be totally fine. But if you're down south, like let's say you're living in northern Texas, right? Northern Texas, you can't plant this Howgate Wonder. It has about 850 chill hours to reset. Whereas you might be looking at a variety called Ben Davies. Ben Davies is a great variety, or Shell. Shell is probably the most popular apple of the South. Shell is a great example where it only requires about 350 to 450 chill hours. Those would be varieties that you'd want to go for if you were living in an area with less chill hours. Now, you can find out how many chill hours you have by just doing a Google search, saying, how many chill hours on average does the nearest big city near me have? And it'll give you an average where it's pretty safe to go by. So you got to know what chill hours are, and you got to pick out varieties that are appropriate for your region. Now, you'll notice we're planting this tree on an angle, and that goes back to what we talked about in the last video, which is if you plant it straight, it's going to grow straight. And so we are planting this on a pretty rough angle, but it's nice and straight now. If you haven't gone and seen that video, make sure you go check it out. There's so many amazing tips in that video that I don't want you to miss. But the second thing that I wanted to talk about, kind of part two, has also to do with chill hours. If you live in a place like Michigan, like we live here in Michigan, if we plant a low chill hour apple, there's one thing that you need to keep in mind, and that's the high risk of frost kill. You see, a variety like Ben Davies or Shell, there's a lot of others, that are a 400, 500 chill hour apple. That clock essentially is met. It's a requirement in order to start flowering. That 400 to 500 chill hours is met very early on, meaning the requirement is already in place. The green check mark has already been checked. Whereas some of our other, later apples, 800, 1,000 chill hours, that checkbox might not be checked until the very end of March, maybe even early April potentially. Whereas if we get a warm spell, and this is what I'm leading to, is if we get a warm spell in April, which happens all the time, and you plant a 400 chill hour apple, the likelihood that it's going to flower is very high because it's already ready to flower based on that reset cycle, saying, as soon as it warms up above freezing, I'm ready to rock. Warms up above freezing, stays above freezing for about a week. It will stimulate flowering, will stimulate growth, and then inevitably you get a late frost or even just a normal frost in some cases, takes out those flowers, you don't get any fruit. Is that the end of the world? No, it's not. It's just something to keep in mind. We have Ben Davies, we also have Shell, we have a lot of low chill hours planted here on the farm, but it's just something it's a risk, and it's something we got to keep in mind. So if you don't want to take the risk, don't plant the trees. Next mistake that I don't want to see you guys make when planting trees is plant them in a location that's not going to be well suited for long-term growth. Now, this is just far too common of a problem for me not to talk about it, and it seems really basic. Like, obviously this tree is going to live here for 25, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on type of tree, how healthy you keep it. So obviously, common sense would say that it's going to get fairly large. Do not plant a tree that is not going to fit there at full maturity. This comes back to what we talked about in the first episode where we talked about rootstock selection. Your rootstock will it does dictate the vigor and the overall mature size. If a tree is supposed to get 25 to 30 feet tall and you've got power lines 20 feet above where you're planting, common sense would say that's probably not a good long-term location. If the tree gets 10 to 12 feet wide and you plant it 6 feet from your house, common sense would say that's not a good long-term location. But yet, time and time again, and I really hope that I don't sound patronizing or, like I'm belittling you if you've made this mistake. You're looking at someone that planted a pear tree. You can go back to the other trees were great in our home orchard, but we planted one variety of pear, summer crisp pear, that I did not realize was on a standard rootstock and got about 35 feet tall. The power company came through and said, that's not going to fly. You need to top that. So they topped it. Well, then I also planted it too close to the house. So not only did I plant it underneath something, but I also planted it way too close to the house to where I've constantly had to lop off the side of it so it's not growing into our siding. These are things that you learn over time, and I'm simply sharing them with you so you don't make the same mistake. Make sure you know how big it's going to get, so where you're putting it, it is good for the long term. The next mistake that far too many gardeners make that I just think is worth mentioning has to do with the question that you guys ask, which is, I only have room for one tree. Would one tree be fine? Now that is a bit of there's some gray area with that, because some people will say, no, it's not fine. It's not fine. You need multiple trees to aid in cross-pollination, and that's going to give you better fruit yield. You also have some people saying, no, it's totally fine. You're going to be totally fine because there's most likely other trees in the area that it'll cross-pollinate with, and so you don't need a cross. Both of those are shockingly true, especially with apples. Now, how can both statements in fact be true? Well, it's because based on what you're growing can really decide if it's true or not. Take apples, for example. Apples, they can cross-pollinate with a crabapple or a domesticated apple as long as that apple is roughly about 500 yards away. So about 1,500 feet away. 1,500 feet, if there is an apple in that vicinity, crabapple or regular domesticated apple, it will cross-pollinate. Now, if that's not an apple, this is where it can be true that you might need a couple. Take, for example, elderberry. Elderberry, it's not a very common plant to have. And elderberries need to have a cross within about 300 yards. So if you're lucky to have an elderberry within 300 yards, about 900 feet, okay, then you're fine. But the chances of that, the likelihood of that is pretty slim. And you need to have two different elderberries to create cross-pollination to have good fruit set. Cherries are another example, okay? Wild cherries, flowering cherry, domesticated cherries, your more ornamental cherries, they all can cross-pollinate. But how often are you going to come in contact with those? And so because of that, it's a risk that you're going to have to take. With apples, apples are so common, they're so frequent that I would venture to say one apple tree is more than fine if that's all you can plant. But with some of your other trees, peach trees, right? You really want to make sure that you've got a peach tree plus another peach tree, or your yields are going to be very, very suppressed. Will they be zero? No, but they will be very low. And so to maximize your fruit yield, you want to make sure that there's good crosses. And just analyzing the popularity of a tree can really help to analyze if you need more than one. The final one I'll end on is blueberries, right? If you're in the city or even out here, right? If you were in, say, the East Coast, okay, there's blueberries everywhere. There's wild blueberries, there's lowland, highland, there's blueberries everywhere. So the likelihood of getting across on the East Coast, like in New Jersey, it's quite high. It's quite high. Whereas if we planted blueberries here, just one blueberry plant, good luck. Good luck getting across. You will have so little, if any, fruit production. And this is a really big mistake that gardeners make, just assuming I only have room to plant one thing, I'm going to plant this one thing and hope for the best. There's a reason why there are recommendations for planting multiple trees, and that's because we want to see you succeed with growing fruit. Alrighty, just about done with this row of trees here. It's looking really great. I'm actually very pleased with how things have been going here on the farm. You know, maybe one of these days we should do a farm tour, but it is looking amazing. And honestly, I've seen a lot of the comments. You guys say, Luke, you look happier. Luke, you look like you're more freed. You look like you're getting better rest. You look less stressed. I would say yes to all of those things. The farm has single-handedly been the best thing that I ever could have asked for. From a content generation standpoint to a noise standpoint, it's like, you couldn't hear a pin drop out here. It's like, there's no sound. It's just the sound of a couple birds, and you don't even hear the wind really because there's no leaves on the trees. It's remarkably quiet. It's just the best thing I could have ever asked for. But the final thing that I wanted to talk about has to do with water. And this is a huge mistake that I do not want to see you make. When it comes to planting these trees need a lot of water to get established and to get growing. But the nice thing is once they are established and once the roots are moving down throughout the soil, you don't have to water as much and you can water far less. But initially, it is so important that you water frequently and deeply. What I mean by that is you want to have the right type of soil that allows water to move throughout the soil well, right? You don't want the water to be sitting here, pooling here. That's going to rot out the roots, it's going to rot out the trunk, and you're going to have a dead tree faster than you can snap your fingers. But what you want to water about every other day initially, right? These are going in the ground in a time when we're getting frequent rains, frequent snow. We're going to mulch this pretty heavily. We really shouldn't have to do much watering fall planting. That's the benefit to fall planting. There's a lot of water in the ground and there's a lot of water falling, every other day in the form of rain and snow. So we don't need to water too much right now, the way that we're planting. But generally, if you plant in the spring and you're getting into the warmer months and it's getting warmer and also drier, that's when you want to water frequently. These trees right here, these young apple trees, they need about 2 to 3 gallons of water per week. 2 to 3 gallons of water per week. Now, you're not doing that all at once because that's really going to leave you with a lot of dry period after that. I would typically water about a half gallon a day. About a half gallon, maybe a gallon a day, 2 to 3 times a week, right? So that's a gallon on Monday, a gallon on Wednesday, and a gallon on Friday. That's your 3 gallons. And that way it has nice water penetration, nice amount of water. The tree is not going to go through as much stress. It's really going to help the tree to not only get established, but also grow much faster for you. I just see it way too often where gardeners think, I'll just water less, or maybe I can't get to them right now. They'll be fine. They're a tree. These trees go through stress the same way your garden does. Only oftentimes with fruit trees, if they get too stressed, a lot of times they get to a point where it's difficult, if not impossible, to bounce back from. And I don't want to see that happen to you because these are far more expensive. One of these trees here, these trees are 30 to 50 bucks. A tomato plant, okay, yeah, it might have been $3 or $4 at your garden center, or maybe a ton of your time getting it started in the spring, but very inexpensive, and they have far more resiliency to bouncing back, right? When these dry out, sometimes it's game over. And so you can really lose some trees and lose some serious money by not watering frequently. So water frequently and mulch. I cannot stress this enough. Mulch helps hold water in the soil. We're gonna come back here and mulch with a ton of wood chips. Mulching this is so imperative to reducing how much we have to water and reducing how fast the water dries out in the soil. Or how fast the, that came out wrong. How fast the soil dries out. Water can't dry out. Soil can dry out. Just water frequently, like I said, about a gallon a day, 2 to 3 times a week until they're well established. And that's for the first 3 to 4 months. After that point, you can kind of dial that back to 1 to 2 gallons a week. Then at that point, once they're really established after the first couple years, you can dial that back to like a gallon a week, if not at all, because then their roots are well established and moving throughout the soil, and they're gonna do great. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to throw a like button up there, or hit the like button, and throw a comment up, letting me know you enjoyed. That really helps. I appreciate it. And if you have not yet subscribed, make sure to do that. I am going to get back to planting. I hope you guys will plant some fruit trees as well, and we'll catch you all on the next episode. Grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free, and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting migardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye.